there who's been working on making a change and making it better. And you can track that, and you can let people know so-and-so is doing this. This is the timeline that they're looking at. This is the timeline in which we would implement, given that all things come together. And then people feel like they're being heard, and that's really critical in continuing to have their buy-in in a change process that can sometimes be difficult for them. And this is my last slide. So what have we gotten out of Sakai that I think is really important and has reinforced our decision to go that way? First is that we were able to add a lot of functions that we didn't have available in Blackboard. It's been really significantly easier for faculty to share resources among courses. Sakai has a number of different ways in which it stores resources, some of which you can use in almost a repository type of fashion, some of which that you can decide how you want to populate across courses while making just a change in a single place. And that was huge for us because we do have a lot of adjunct faculty who teach, and it's great when they can know where resources exist for their courses already. We now are able to have all faculty, staff, and student committees collaborate in Sakai via the project site option. Before, we couldn't have possibly afforded that, to have that many users using Blackboard all the time. We have our big learning community effort, which is outside of class. Those environments can now be really active with students participating in them at all hours. Even if they're in face-to-face classes, they really enjoy having the ability to communicate like that and still have faculty involvement within those learning communities. We're now able to do online orientations throughout the district. That had been a really big difficulty for us as we have new students coming in who can't drive 3 or 4 hours to get to a campus, who may be deciding whether they're going to come to campus, live in the dorms, or whether they're going to be doing things online. They can now take a full orientation course via Sakai over a 2-week period and learn everything that they need to learn for free. They don't already have to be students. It's really easy for us to add them into our system. And we have found it, really easy to integrate new tools as they come along. I list several of the ones there that we use regularly: Illuminate, Skype. We're a Google Apps school. So all of those, there are many ways in which to integrate them, either superficially or very deeply, depending upon how much you want to do with your particular implementation. So these are all things that we didn't have before with Blackboard, and even if Blackboard could supply them, it would cost us significantly more money, whereas for us it didn't. I think this is you, Randy.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much, Maggie. I was just taking a review there of all the questions for the end, and I'm going to try and work a couple of the answers in right now, and which is to describe in a little bit the relationship that RSmart has with Redwoods and with the Sakai community. I think that one of the things that makes the Sakai community rather different than other open source communities is that from the very beginning, the relationship that universities, especially research universities, have had with the commercial world is part of the Sakai landscape, so that although it was started by certain large universities and others join in to help, the notion that there are commercial affiliates was part of the mix from the beginning, and it's sort of built on the Red Hat model with Linux, which is to say there are people who want to be able to use these applications, but that they will not necessarily have the resources in-house to do the full support of development and other things which go along with that kind of model. RSmart fills that gap by focusing on taking the community version of Sakai, doing quality testing on it, adding certain specific tools, and then coming up with a support and hosted solution which people pay for. And that doesn't mean that we're a commercial affiliate on the sense that we have a product, which we do. There is a product that we have, but much more importantly, we're part of the community. And for instance, the person across from me in this room, is a member of the product council, helps shepherd that process of all the people who host with us and all the schools and companies now that work with RSmart and use our version of Sakai which is basically the same as the community version. It's not different. It's just our packaged implementation. We represent them to the community, and we represent them to the product council so that their voices are heard. That's part of actually what I do as a client evangelist, which is an unusual job title. And that's all because there's this notion that there's a path, there's a way. The metaphor I use to say when you're dealing with the Sakai community is that you don't just get a place at the table. You're not buying a place and get to sit down, but you also get a place in the kitchen. If you want to be in the kitchen and help cook, if you want to help set the menu, that's part of the process of community. Maggie mentioned that, as part of what happens here is that not just that you have something that you can use, but you have a voice in deciding where it's going to go. It's never going to be bought by another company. It's never going to be, abandoned because there is a very large and growing community of people, and the commercial support is there, which is part of RSmart's role in this particular community. So I think the governance and structure of Sakai, from the outside, people sort of look at it and kind of go, well, it's open source. But inside, you realize there's a very professional development process that goes into this, just like, in a corporation where the developers have, there's quality testing and all of that goes on. One of the questions that someone asked earlier in the questions was, does Redwood pay to be part of the Sakai community? So actually I was going to ask Maggie, and I'll slide it in right here, which is, Maggie, how much and what does Redwood pay to be part of the Sakai community?
We don't.
So, excellent.
There is an option, and I have to say, I wish we could. There is an option because the Sakai Foundation does ask for people to voluntarily pay a membership fee. I kind of think of it like being a member of EDUCAUSE as an institution or something like that. However, there's no requirement for you to do that, and because of our budget situation, we have not done that this year. Personally, I've put it in my budget for next year just because I believe that paying for that is important. Being part of the open source solution is important. Those membership fees go to help pay programmers in colleges and institutions to move things along in the timeline that the community has decided to move things along. Now, many colleges do that without asking for payment, but it's kind of like a grant. So I think it's important to do that. There certainly is no requirement to do that. But right now, we're not paying.
Okay, well, that's good. I think that's very important because I know that some people have a misconception about that. Also, something else that as I've come over to the Sakai community and have really learned it coming from my background in the Moodle community, so I'm really always amazed at the vast number of ways in which people can participate. There's sort of this idea that you have to have, gaggles of Java programmers sitting in a closet somewhere in order to actually either implement or use Sakai, which is really not true. Now, that's not to say there aren't, closets full of those programmers at certain schools. Like Indiana has a closet of those guys who do that. But the rest of the community participates, doing quality assurance, asking and advocating for certain kinds of features. And part of what RSmart does as a commercial affiliate is we have our own process of support and help. So if you find a bug, our programmers put it in the system and they fix it. And everything that RSmart does goes back to the community. So part of our business model as a member of the community is not just that, we fix things or build things for the people who are our clients, but all that stuff goes back into the community. So if Redwoods finds a bug and we fix it, which has happened recently, we release that and it goes back into the community pool of programmers and they all get the advantage of that. So that's kind of that relationship. So, speed of implementation. I don't know that I've seen anybody, Maggie, do it quicker than you guys have. And what interests me about the Redwood experience is it was driven by the budget and essentially a budget crisis in your state. Would you do this again?
That fast? No.